Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CSW 65 parallel event on improving girls' self-esteem to inspire new generations of leaders and change makers. My name is Sarah Anna Awad, and I'm coming to you from Vienna in Austria today. I am an advocacy champion with WAGS, and as maybe not everyone knows what this is, here's a short introduction. My fellow colleagues and I are young girls from around the world, each committed to gender equality, challenging harmful norms in our own societies and as a whole on a global level. We advocate for the issues close to our heart, such as ending violence against women, better access to health care, climate justice, and as to the topic of today, tackling appearance-based discrimination. Together, we bring a lot of experience and knowledge on the table, and this is why we are ready to lead this conversation and change. So, what is the purpose of the event today? We want to build bright futures for all girls and young women and bring this on the table of the CSW. This means that we need to tackle the barriers we face, and low body confidence is one of them. So there's a lot of evidence out there that proves that increasing one's own body image helps being more confident in all paths of life. I can talk about this too. My own association used the Free Being Me toolkit to roll out a whole campaign in Austria with our members, and it helped raise awareness within both girls and boys, as you have to bring everyone on board, of course. And even myself, I know that I perform best when I feel confident about myself, and worrying about how I look is a pressure that stops me from taking fully part in society. It feels better to stay behind or at home, even hiding. But through WAGS and the project, I found a unique self-confidence to myself that lifted me on a whole new level of being an advocate too. While I can't say that I'm not afraid anymore at all times of how I look, I'm aware of how to steer my thinking and feeling about myself into a healthier and safer platform, not hindering me from taking part in public life, understanding that I'm beautiful the way that I am. And to come to this year's CSW theme, Women in Public Life and Equal Participation in Decision-Making, I want to say that it's never been easy for women to deal with the ever-mutating standards of female beauty. But in the golden age of social media, where anonymous troll armies roam the internet, body-shaming people are on the whim, dealing with these standards has reached a whole new level of crazy. And nobody understands the pressures more than those who live in the public eye. Media is controlling the narrative, and we need to change this so everyone can feel in public spaces. And President Obama once said about his daughters, and I really like this quote, "As a person in the public eye, you notice the enormous pressure that young women are placed under in terms of looking a certain way and being cute in a certain way. And are you wearing the right clothes? And how is your hair done? Is it right? It's part and a parcel of a broader way in which we socialize and press women to constantly doubt themselves or define themselves in terms of certain appearance. This affects women to such a large extent that they are hindered from fully participating in decision-making roles, either worrying about themselves or being targeted by others, not based on how they work, but on their appearance. So while women have made significant strides in the past decades, and I'm very thankful for this, the culture at large continues to place a great emphasis on how women look. The beauty standards, largely proliferated through the media, have drastic impacts on young women and their body images. We're constantly surrounded by all sorts of media, and we construct our identities in part through media images we see. Therefore, we are calling on individuals across all sectors to help change these circumstances. And we're calling on the government to integrate body confidence culture and evidence-based programming into school curricula and activities. Schools have a vital role to play in supporting body confidence through incorporating it into classroom teaching and extracurricular activities. Incentivize advertising companies and social media companies to stop either using airbrushing and using other enhancement techniques or promoting them on their platforms. We call on the media, which includes television, print, and online magazines and advertisers, to stop propagating unobtainable body ideals and diversify women and girls with a broader range of healthy body types, physical abilities, skin tones across media content. This includes the portrayal of women in roles in public and in private life. Then we call on the corporate industry. The corporate industry, especially the health and cosmetic sectors, stop producing and advertising products and services that fuel the need to alter our appearance and that can cause danger to our health, such as skin lightening or weight loss products. Additionally, the fashion and garment industry must consistently use models who represent a wide range of body types and appearances. And then we call on the civil society. Okay, I'm unmuted again. So we call on the civil society to include body confidence in the design and implementation of campaigns on SDG 5 and SDG 3. And finally, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you can support in making these goals achievable. I hope by hearing my story and hearing the panelists today, you will rally behind these crucial issues, as well as the importance of amplifying young women's voices. I would now like to invite our event partners to share a quick address. So I'm handing over to our wonderful Delali Morty, who is the Global Programs Manager for the Free Being Me and Action on Body Confidence program at WAGS.
Hello everyone, it gives me great pleasure to be addressing you and representing the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts today. For us at WAGS, civil society engagement at the Commission on the Status of Women continues to be a cornerstone of how we amplify young women and girls' voices at a global level. At this CSW 65, we are supporting a youth delegation of 15 young women from 14 different countries across the world, including Austria, Argentina, the UK, Burundi, Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Malaysia, Canada, Tunisia, Madagascar, and Tanzania to take part in the 65th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. CSW is the biggest annual gathering of governments dedicated to the advancement of gender equality and the empowerment of women in the world. During the Commission's annual 2-week session, representatives of UN member states and civil society organisations like ourselves and the Dove Self-Esteem Project gather at the UN, or in this case, virtually this year, and agree on further actions to accelerate progress towards gender equality. With UN Women predicting that the global pandemic could set progress towards gender equality by as much as 25 years, these 15 young women are calling on their political leaders to commit to offsetting these setbacks, particularly in the terms of gender-based violence, nutrition and agency, and their bodies and their self-esteem. Empowering young women and girls plays a key role in international politics and in agenda setting. And for us, it is an integral part of what we do at Girl Guiding and Girl Scouting. Our movement began in 1910 after a group of young women spoke out about what they wanted at the 1909 Crystal Palace boycott rally. They demanded a movement for girls and they achieved it. Across the world, our movement is a powerhouse of skills, commitment, and energy and influence to a unique contribution that Girl Guides can bring to all in the world to be helpful to all causes. Our work in supporting young women and girls to develop strong self-esteem and body confidence is intrinsic to achieving our vision, which remains to enable all girls and young women to develop to their fullest potential as responsible citizens of the world. And that is why we are so grateful to the Dove Self-Esteem Project, who have been partnering with us since 2013 to aid over 6.2 million young people across the world to access non-formal education and develop local youth-led advocacy around these issues through the Free Being Me and Action on Body Confidence programs. So with that being said, I would now like to hand over to Firdaus Al-Hanzali, the Dove Global Director of Communications and Sustainability, to share more about why it's so important for corporate industries to participate in ensuring we meet our gender equality, confidence, and self-esteem goals for all girls and young women. Thank you, Firdaus.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's session. And a huge thank you to all the girls who have worked incredibly hard to make this event possible. On the Dove Self-Esteem Project, we have a clear mission, one that is about empowering the next generation of girls by strengthening their self-esteem and body confidence. In a world where 8 out of 10 girls opt out of important activities like raising their hands in class because they're so concerned about their appearance, our mission has never been. At Dove, we're really committed to drive change, a tangible one, for the next generation. We aim to support girls by giving them the tools they need through self-esteem educational programs, and support women and girls in challenging the narrow beauty ideals that are very limiting to them. They surround us when we walk down the streets and when we scroll through our social feeds. And also finding and supporting tangible solutions for a more supportive and inclusive environment. but we drive this change alone. Really lucky partners such as the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, one of our longest standing partners, working together since 2013 with one common purpose: building a world where young girls can live and enjoy their lives free from anxieties about their appearance. I am delighted to be part of this session to drive awareness around this critical issue of low self-esteem, limiting girls' leadership potential, and discussing the actions we can take together as a collective group to let them fulfill their potential. Now, it's with great pleasure that I invite to the virtual stage the Honorable Minister Mariam Monsef and our moderator, Dorothy Rosario, Global World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts Advocacy Champion, for the first dialogue of our event. Thank you very much, and over to you, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Firdaus. Hi, everyone. I am Dorothy Rosario, and I am an advocacy champion for the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, and I am coming to you from the Philippines. I will be your moderator for today's event, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our discussion and dialogue with our first panelist of today. I was muted. Again, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our discussion and dialogue with our first panelist of today, the Honorable Minister Maria Monsef. The Honorable Maria Monsef is Canada's Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development and the Member of Parliament for Peterborough, Kawartha. She is the first woman to be elected in the federal riding of Peterborough, Kawartha, the first Afghan-Canadian Member of Parliament in Canada's history, and the first Muslim to serve as a federal cabinet minister. She has led the Canadian delegation to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women since 2017 and was instrumental in bringing discussions of gender equality to the table at the World Economic Forum. Such an inspiring woman we have today, so without further ado, let us call on Minister Monsef to the virtual stage. Good evening from this side of the world, Minister, and welcome to the event. Thank you so much for being here, and we are extremely grateful and lucky to have some of your precious time today.
Hi, Dorothy. I think that she's not yet on the call, so we will just wait a moment and see.
Yeah, I think her team are having some technical issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the quiz that we had earlier for do some body confidence knowledge testing. So I'm going to ask our amazing tech assistant, Nafisa, to stop sharing and then go straight to the quiz. And then we'll have Ijen, who is going to lead us in our quiz until the minister arrives.
All right, sounds great. Yeah, before we continue, allow me to call on my fellow advocacy champion, Ijen, to run an activity that will test your knowledge of how much you understand the role body confidence and self-esteem plays in ensuring young women and girls' full and effective participation. Handing over to you, Ijen.
Thank you, Dorothy. Hello, everyone. I'm Ijen, and I'm also advocacy champions at WAX, reporting to you from Malaysia. I'm very excited to lead you through this next segment to keep this event meaningful and more questions on ahaslides.com. So all you have to do is go to this website to answer the questions and participate. The link is on the slide and in the chat box. You can also scan the QR code on the screen with your mobile devices. We will have some time to do this quiz. And if you would like to get up and move your body while you answer these questions, please feel free to do so. Keep those juices flowing. And while you do that, let's also take a moment to appreciate our body for the movements that it can make. So are you ready? Yes, we are. Okay, the first question is, they will opt out of basic life activities. Which life activity is affected here? Is it putting your hands up in the class, taking part in hobbies, or using public services, such as going to see the doctors? You have 40 seconds. Just vote for the correct answer. Give me your best guess. Come on, everyone. There's over 70 of us here in the meeting room. Give us your best guess. All you have to do is vote on it. I can see that there are 45 people on the slides. So if you just click on the options that you think is correct, is it A, B, or C, or maybe is there more than one answer? Ah, okay, I see the votes are coming in. 33 people have voted for putting their hands up in class. Taking part in hobbies, there's 24 people voted for that. Using public services, 26 people. And 5 more seconds. If you want to put in your last votes, you can do so. And let's see the correct answer. In fact, it is all three. The answer is all three. So girls are affected in a lot of aspects when they don't feel good about how they look. Next question. How many girls with low body esteem say they will not be assertive in their opinion or stick to decisions if they don't feel good about themselves? Is it 7 in 10, 6 in 10, or 4 in 10? Ah, okay. It seems like 7 in 10 is taking the lead. Up, Donna, you commented 6. Up, 6 is going up, but we still have 7 in the lead. And the correct answer is? What do you think the correct answer is? 7 in 10. Congrats to all 37 of you, 38 of you who got it correct. And in fact, the answer is 7 in 10, 72% to be exact. So if we move on to the next question. According to a research commissioned by Dove, it revealed that low self or body esteem could deprive the UK of how many business professionals and female entrepreneurs by 2050. Do you know the answer? I see the votes coming in. 64 people are on the AHA slides. Come on, everyone. Give us your best. The leading one is 115,000 business professionals and 30,000 female entrepreneurs. Is that the correct answer? I don't know. You have around 15 minutes more. I see that in the chat box, we also have some answers. Piensa, I think you voted for B, which is 200,000 business professionals and 40,000 female entrepreneurs. And Donna, you voted for the last one. Ah, okay, we have revealed the answer. The correct answer is B, 200,000 business professionals and 40,000 female entrepreneurs. That's a huge number if you ask me. And last but not least, our last question for our quiz. What percentage of young people within the guiding and scouting movement polled as part of U Report Global in 2020 said that challenges from COVID-19 restrictions impacted their self-image? Is it 35%, 29%, or 47%? I see that 29 people have voted. It's going up, it's going up. Majority of you seem to have voted for 47%. And 35% is coming second. And the answer, do we have the correct answer? Yes, congratulations to 31 of you who got it correct. The answer is 47%. And that's the end of my very short intervention. Thank you for participating, everyone. It was really great to see your engagement in this quiz. I hope you now know how important it is, the issue we're about to discuss today. So here's what we know. Low body confidence and self-esteem is a critical issue for girls and women globally. It is an invisible barrier to girls' development and full and effective participation in life. Low body confidence limits girls' leadership, potential, and confidence in decision making. And number 4, when young women opt out because of harmful societal norms and discrimination, society misses out. Lastly, issues are exacerbated by COVID-19 and the residual effects of the pandemic on social life. These issues and key statements will form the basis of our wider panel discussion, which aims to build on the key themes and statistics you have just engaged with. I'd like to hand over to Dorothy, our moderator, to begin. Dorothy, the floor is back to you.
Thank you so much, Ijen. That was wonderful. At this juncture, while we are still waiting for the minister, I would like to introduce to all of you our panelists now and invite them to answer our icebreaker question. So, our first panelist is Dr. Felipa Daedrix. Dr. Felipa Daedrix, PhD, is an award-winning psychology researcher specializing in the development and evaluation of evidence-based strategies to improve body image in community, education, business, and policy settings on a global scale. Everyone, let's welcome Dr. Felipa Daedrix. Hi, hi, Felipa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi there, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, before starting the discussion, I would like to ask you, and I would like to know, what is your biggest hope for what is achieved at this year's CSW 65?
I hope at this year that we continue to really listen to girls and women, and that we continue to believe girls and women. And despite all of the challenges that we're facing around the world, that everyone remains inspired and hopeful, that we can continue to see huge changes into society and to see girls and women progress as they have done throughout history.
I absolutely agree. Thank you so much for that, Felipa. Secondly, we have Yvette and Kurunziza, an advocacy champion for Rwanda and the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. Yvette is a lead mentor of the Speak Out project, which teaches girls about their human rights and teaches boys that girls in their communities must be valued and respected. Yvette helps educate women on their rights, health, and body confidence. Hi, and welcome to the panel, Yvette.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. A pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here as well. I have the same question for you, Yvette. What is your biggest hope for what is achieved at this year's CSW 65?
Yes, thank you very much, Dorothy. Actually, with this year's CSW 65 now online, it has proven that women and girls have a participation in public spaces freer than usual. My biggest hope of this year's CSW is to have policies that tackle all body confidence restrictions and invisible barriers that remove girls and women's involvement in decision-making positions and leadership positions as well. Thank you very much, Dorothy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that all these barriers hindering women to take up spaces in leadership and decision-making spaces, as you said, must be removed. And yeah, thank you so much for raising that, Yvette. Moving on, our next panelist is Evelyn Espinal. Evelyn is leading Unilever's new equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy, which is an organization-wide effort to achieve an equitable and inclusive culture that eliminates any bias and discrimination from all workplace and leadership practices and policies. It's great to have you here, Evelyn. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. It's such a pleasure to be here as part of this amazing event. I'm just so inspired to see how many young girls are tuning into this conversation.
Yeah, and I have the same question to you, Evelyn. For you, what is your biggest hope for this year's CSW 65?
I think my biggest hope is that young women take control and empower themselves. I think often we wait for others to open those doors for us. And in these kinds of events, you see such amazing young girls with presence and bravery who are telling their story. And so I hope that everyone who's a part of this discussion will find ways to continue to empower themselves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like we have a lot of girls, only if we can give them opportunities, they are able to speak up for themselves and make change for the better, right? Thank you so much for that, Evelyn. Next in line, we have Kathleen Vivas, an advocacy champion for the Philippines and WAGs. Kathleen is an advocate for better education around nutrition, gender equality, and body confidence. She has acted as a speaker and facilitator for many events on the resilience and self-confidence of women. Hi, Kathleen. Welcome to the panel.
Thanks, Dorothy. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, same here. We are also glad to have you here as well. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us again. And I have the same question for you. I would like to ask, what are your thoughts on our goal for this year's CSW 65?
Well, I think our goal to enable women to participate fully in decision making and leadership roles is part of our main agenda for achieving gender equality and women empowerment is just, it's really wonderful. With the COVID-19 pandemic revealing all these deep rooted societal issues that we have in today's world, societal issues like gender inequality, broken justice systems, and even the great divide, digital divide that we have been exacerbated during these times. And so our goal to discuss all these issues for this year's CSW is just really wonderful. And I believe that it is a great step for our goal. Thank you, Dorothy.
Yeah, I think so too, Kathleen. Our goal for this year's CSW is really wonderful. And yeah, just like what you said, the pandemic has really revealed the inequalities present in our societies, and coming together for CSW and really taking actions to achieve the goals are essential and a big step, just like what you said. And of course, last but not the least, we have Sophie Nelson. Sophie is the WAG's advocacy champion for the United Kingdom. She is a British Youth Council member, and as a hashtag body confidence advocate, Sophie campaigns against the negative depiction of women in the media, period poverty, and sexual harassment. Hi, Sophie. I am glad to welcome you in our panel. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dorothy. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, and finally, Sophie, what is your biggest hope for what is achieved at this year's CSW 65?
So I really hope that this year that we are doing justice to those women who have suffered under really oppressive systems that are working against them. I love the quote, "No woman is free until every woman is free." And so I hope that this year's CSW holds the key to unlocking some of the freedoms that as women we have been unable to experience for so long. And that's why I'm so excited as well that the Minister has joined us today. And Dorothy, I'd like to hand it back over to you to reintroduce the Minister. Thank you.
Wonderful, Sophie. Thank you so much. Yeah, and before we introduce the Minister again, I would like to reiterate what you said, that no woman is free until every woman is free. And I also hope that the amazing works that we are doing today will collectively be the key that we will use to unlock the equality and freedom of tomorrow. All right. Now that we have the Minister joining us in our call, we are really grateful to have her. I am happy to announce that just like what Sophie said, our Minister has already been here in the call. And now, please allow me to introduce her once again. So the Honorable Mariam Monsef, again, is Canada's Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development and the Member of Parliament for Peterborough, Kawartha. She is the first woman to be elected in the federal riding of Peterborough, Kawartha, the first Afghan-Canadian Member of Parliament in Canada's history, and the first Muslim to serve as a federal cabinet minister. She has led the Canadian delegation to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women since 2017 and was instrumental in bringing discussions of gender equality to the table at the World Economic Forum. Just like what I mentioned a while ago, we have such an inspiring woman today. So without further ado, allow me to welcome Minister Monsaf to the virtual stage. Good evening from this side of the world, Minister, and welcome to the event. Thank you so much for being here. And we are extremely grateful and lucky to have some of your precious time today.
Dorothy, the privilege is all mine. Good morning from Peterborough, Ontario. I'm in Canada on Mississauga territory, and I was having some technical challenges, and the idea of missing my opportunity with this incredible group was probably the most stressed I've been all COVID about anything to do with tech glitches. So thank you very much for including me in this conversation, and I'm looking and seeing some of the faces who have joined this conversation. I see you, Trish. I see you, Akari, and I see Mia. Mia, hello. It's good to see you. Look, I was able to hear I was able to hear from all the panelists just now, and it's an honor to be part of this conversation with you.
Yes, no worries on what happened a while ago. Actually, the pleasure is all ours, and I am really excited to have this conversation with you, Minister, and I am sure that our audience are excited as well. Yeah, so let's begin. As we all know, this is the first ever CSW that has been coordinated virtually, and there have been a lot of global events this year which have changed the nature of discussion around achieving gender equality, right? So as an icebreaker question that I asked to the panelists a while ago, I would like to know, what is your biggest hope for what is achieved at this year's CSW 65?
I think that's a great icebreaker. And I was at the UN in 2013. I wasn't a minister. I was volunteering for the YWCA, and I got a scholarship through their Young Women Leadership Program. And so I guess my hope for this year's CSW, because it's an important year for women and girls and non-binary folks, is this: that we remember that even though we have to be apart from each other, that we are part of a very strong movement that has existed long before any of us got here. And it's a movement that'll go on long after we're gone. That it's a movement at its best, it's a sisterhood. And for the girls and for the young women who are part of this, for them to start to see themselves as in positions of leadership and drivers of the change we need them to be in charge of. And then, in the more immediate, we need to hear how women are landing. We need to hear what's happening to our girls. And we haven't had the same opportunities to connect and have those conversations. And the best outcome from CSW from here on is that these conversations continue and build momentum, that it doesn't stop at CSW, but it's for the upcoming year or two, because the challenges and the opportunities aren't going to go away in the near future.
Yeah, I agree that even during this time, we should not allow anything to hold us back. And just like what you said, fighting for gender equality is really vital now, more than ever, right? And to shed more light on how we can achieve and reach this goal, today I prepared several questions for you, Minister, revolving around our event's theme, which is improving girls' self-esteem to inspire new generations of leaders and change makers. So our participation at CSW 65 is centered on the recognition of body confidence, self-esteem, and tackling appearance-based discrimination as integral to girls' and young women's development and full and effective participation. Therefore, I have prepared two thematic questions for you, Minister, and I would like to ask you if you are ready. All right, yes, of course. First off, low body confidence and self esteem are often described as invisible barriers to girls' leadership potential, and participation, which we actually included in our event title. So could you please share your thoughts on these in relation to achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 5.5, which aims to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making? Minister?
So to be a decision maker, to have a voice and then to be able to advocate, you have to feel comfortable and confident in yourself to get up in front of a room. And often those rooms aren't friendly rooms, right? If you're trying to make a change and you're getting up in front of a group of decision makers, it's usually because you're going against the grain. And so without the confidence to stand up there and have your voice be heard and, be respected, it's really hard to work up the courage to do that. So the fact that Dove and our NGO partners are focusing on this is really, really important. Little girls I know and girls and young women that I talk to, it's incredible just how much strength there is within them already. And then something happens, right, around the age of 6 or so, where that confidence goes down. So that we're aware of it is important. I grew up in places where, I wasn't allowed to go outside. Girls were asked to keep their voice down, to be polite, to not say too much, to just keep the peace. But I had a grandfather who believed in us and said we're going to do great things with our lives. And pretty much every single day, he would give my sisters and I something to read, and he would say, go stand and read it as if you're in front of an audience. And he would tell us what to do with our hands and what to do with our eyes and how to raise our inflections when need be. And a man like him, the elder in our family, believing in us, gave my sisters and I confidence. So certainly family members play a big role, educators play a big role, the media and partners like Unilever with the great reach you have globally play a big role. What our government is doing is our focus is at this point healthy relationships and dating for teens and young adults. That's part of what we've done. We've also, through the Prime Minister's initiative, established the first youth council, the Prime Minister's Youth Council in Canada, so that young people start to get comfortable in those positions and talking to decision makers. But I would say, for all the ways that we do what we can to hold our girls up, we have so much work to do, because what COVID has done is taken away too many caring adults in our daughters' lives. My 11, 12-year-old niece and my 5-year-old niece, they're spending all sorts of time online. They're learning all sorts of tech skills, but they're also vulnerable to all sorts of horrible things. And they're also seeing different ways of modeling and different role models. So for all the work that we had to do before COVID, we now have to double down and increase our efforts to ensure that our daughters are safe in whatever platforms they choose, because nothing harms your confidence than being violated or having your dignity called into question. But more and more, creating spaces where girls are driving the agenda. Girls are sitting at the table. And I've got a pretty special group of girls here in my community who, we gathered them together for Girls Club. And at that first meeting, I thought we would break the ice a little bit, chat, and, just socialize. And then one of the girls just sat up, like straight back with her hands together on the desk and said, "Okay, that's enough. Let's get down to business." So our girls have a lot to say. They've got plenty of spice, and we need them to stay that way.
Yeah, these are extremely rich insights, and I find it interesting that you mentioned that it was your grandfather who actually inspired you, who motivated you and your sister, and that made me think that men and women should really work together. Like they should work hand in hand, and they should be allies in order for us to achieve gender equality. And I know you already stressed this enough, Minister, but I would like to reiterate that encouragement really is important. Like we need to empower our girls because they really have so much potential in them. And I really believe in that. And now that we are talking about it, my second question would be, this is in relation to what you mentioned a while ago, that you were expected to be reserved. You're expected to be quiet. Girls are expected to act like this. What are your thoughts on the role harmful gender norms and attitudes play in limiting young women and girls' full and effective participation in decision making and public life?
Well, I agree with you that they do, Dorothy. The way we raise our sons and daughters determines the way they see themselves and the way others see them. I, raising kids is hard. I don't have any kids of my own. My sister's got two daughters, as I said, and I watch her do what she does, and it's a lot of work. And so, to any early learning childcare workers, to our teachers and educators, you're a really important part of the development of our girls, and so are our media partners. So, these harmful cultural norms, they can, and I can't speak to others' experiences. I started getting marriage proposals around the age of 10. And, in our culture, that was kind of normal, especially because my sisters and I had lost our father. I was 4 when we lost our father, and my mom was widowed at a young age. And as an Afghan refugee in Iran, or as an Afghan widow in Afghanistan, it wasn't a safe or viable option for her to go out and work and earn a living. It was taboo even for women to go out and work back then. And for a while we weren't allowed outside because, the Taliban. My mom could have chosen to marry my sisters and I off at a very young age. And to protect us from that and to let us, find a new chance at life in a new country, that took guts. But to protect us from the social and the cultural expectations that, oh, your daughters should be married, you got to be careful with what they end up doing with their lives. They might bring shame to the family. To be able to withstand that kind of pressure from all sorts of well meaning people, that took more than guts. That took strength and patience and faith. But she did that for us and she defied a social norm. And because of her, my sisters and I got the biggest break we could have, which is getting a chance to finish our schooling, to give back to the community that helped us out. And now for myself, I get to give back to my country. So had she given in to those social norms, I'm sure I would have had a decent life, but I certainly would not have had the opportunity to be part of conversations like this about other little girls who have all sorts of potential in front of them, but sometimes we just got to get out of their way. Our daughters don't need too much, right? They just need us to believe in them and to get out of their way. And when they fall, help pick them up. That's all. And look at the Malalas of the world, right? They're making a world of difference, one girl at a time.
You are raised by a very empowered woman, and I can totally relate. I mean, like my mom, she would not like she will give me the power to decide what I want to have in my life. Like for example, joining Girl Scouting, and now I'm in Girl Scouting, and I'm also given these amazing opportunities. If she stopped me at a very young age, I would not be here. And I am really happy that we have parents, we have mothers who are really strong and brave enough to do all this, to decide to give the power to their daughters for them to decide for themselves. And whenever they fall, they will be just there backing us up. Yeah, and thank you, Minister. I really agree. And I also believe that it is really important to discuss and dig deeper into the unrecognized barriers, because if they did not brave uh, those societal norms and those standards that were already present, we the empowered women won't be created, right? And with that, I hope that your thoughts and perception on this issue really resonated with our audience today as it resonated with me. So moving on, I now have more general questions for you. So we all know that this year's priority theme is women's full and effective participation and decision making in public life and women empowerment. Can you speak to the importance of these in your experience as a minister for gender equality?
I'm very fortunate that Prime Minister Trudeau has asked me to take on this role and that I'm not the only one around the cabinet table advocating for these issues. I think back to, 53 years ago when there was only one woman sitting around the cabinet table. And, Judy LaMarche was her name. And it's because of her that Canada actually went out and did a royal commission on the status of women for the first time ever. And out of that report came a bunch of recommendations around childcare and unpaid care work. And of course, creating a department responsible for the status of women. So the job isn't just on me, but the job is to ensure that women, girls, and gender diverse folks are safe, that they're healthy, that they're able to participate in the workforce, and that their voices are shaping the decisions we make. We also, in my department, collect gender disaggregated data and help to analyze it for our own purposes, for the rest of government, and of course, for our public and private sector partners. One of the ways that we work with our partners is like right now, for example, we have $100 million feminist response and recovery fund open, accepting applications for our partners here in Canada who can help do any of those things, improve health and safety and increase workforce participation and the voices of those who are not at the table. So the project that we connected with Dove on is it comes from my department looking for different partners to advance this work. So I'll put a call out there if anybody's interested, any of our Canadian partners are interested in working with the government of Canada to do some of the things we're talking about on this panel. Let's go. We want to hear from you. Our daughters need to be in high skilled, high wage, high growth jobs like science, technology, trades, engineering, design, and mathematics. We need them there. We have labor shortages. They're going to be pivotal to our economic recovery. Our daughters absolutely deserve to be safe. And just like we've seen in the global community, the rates of gender-based violence, violence against kids, violence against women, online violence has gone up dramatically because of COVID. And we've put in, to the extent that we can, systems and supports through frontline organizations to address and prevent this increase in rate of violence. But on the other side of COVID, as my honorable colleague Patty Haidu, the minister responsible for health, and the person who had my job before me reminded me, we have to be mindful and we have to make sure that we don't have a generation of broken kids on the other side of this pandemic that we don't tend to. So there's going to be a mental health pandemic coming at us very quickly. And what is self-esteem, right? It's how you see yourself. It's part of your mental health. What is your ability to lead? It has a lot to do with your headspace and whether you feel good about yourself in your heart. So that's something that as a government we're mindful of. And ultimately, what I'm looking forward to, and part of my challenge that I accepted on Women's Day was we also need to do a far better job at celebrating our successes and celebrating the strengths of women and girls and non-binary folks in our country. Little girls are rocking it. They have managed to stay, home in a really important point in their life so that they can keep our elders safe. And they're doing all sorts of creative things. My nieces, their tech skills have gone up substantially. My 5-year-old niece knows how to navigate things better than I can. And, they're learning and they've lost some innocence because of COVID. But as sad as that is, with that loss of innocence and them having to grow up faster, they also have a level of wisdom that is going to be a big part of their generation's just way of being. So how do we tap into that? And the Prime Minister and our Deputy Prime Minister, Freeland, have put together an advisory group to help create 1 million jobs in Canada and make sure that women's recovery is part of that. So When mothers are doing well, when women are doing well, our families are stronger, our communities are safer, and ultimately our economy grows. So that's the focus from here on. But first and foremost, it's about preventing the spread of preventing the spread of the virus. And it's now a race against variants and making sure we get vaccines into arms. And that's first and foremost for everybody, because as you all know, women have been hit hardest by COVID, and vaccines will disproportionately benefit them.
Yeah, I am not Canadian, but when you were talking about the solutions that your ministry have provided to your citizens, especially to the women, I don't know, I just get feel I'm just so proud, like, not even though I'm not Canadian, and that made me think that this are what women and girls are gonna get if the leaders are women representing them. If we have women in the leadership spaces representing them and thinking about them, these are going to be the solutions, and these are going to be the help that the support that they're going to have. Yeah, and now
Absolutely, Dorothy. Representation matters, but remember, how we raise our sons matters too, because somebody raised a feminist son, and that feminist son became the Prime Minister of Canada, and in 2015 said, I'm going to appoint a gender balanced cabinet, and he's been my biggest champion at that table. So yes, we need to do everything we can to hold up our girls and create spaces for them, because God knows we need to. But at the same time, we need to recognize that that power imbalance for the time being means that the more we support the women and families who are raising feminist sons, the better it is for all of us.
I agree. The more men that we get as an ally, the more we achieve gender equality faster. I agree with that, Minister. And now, moving on, this is the question that I am itching to ask you. When I was practicing for this interview, I am really thinking of this question. And for sure, we have a lot of young advocates tuning into our event, either via Zoom or via live stream on YouTube. So my question is, what is your advice to the young advocates like myself who want to create change for young women and girls with regards to their empowerment, self-esteem, and participation in leadership and decision making?
Dorothy, if and I looked at the range of ages on this call, there are girls on here who are already way ahead of the curve. So you're already at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Keep it up and be nice to the caring adults around you who have created these opportunities. So, first of all, just know that you're already head and shoulders above the rest, and like feel good about that. Feel proud of that. Stacy reminds me that there's an additional 80 folks watching on YouTube Live, and we appreciate them. Um, Look, this if you're in this work, if you're joining the movement for feminism and for equity and equality, just remember that it's going to be hard. It will be hard every single day. And some days will be harder than others. Some days it'll just be so good because you see everything you did kind of fall into place and something really great got done. Make sure you celebrate those moments. I don't do a good enough job at that. And it's the celebration of those moments that fills your cup, your sense of self, your self-esteem. It just feels good. So don't forget to celebrate your successes, but remember that it will be hard. So surround yourself, like I have the good fortune to, with really good people, a great team with good mentors who have your back, who you can call up and ask for advice. I don't think any woman has been able to get anywhere without mentors and a solid team around her. And on the hard days, because they will come, and I'm sure they already have, it will be hard to get up and go back at it again. And on those days, I hope that you are able to get up and keep moving because you have a very strong why. Why do you want to see more girls taking part in decision making processes? Why is it important for you? And once you know what your why is, then it's easier to get up and go. And the winds will blow and they'll try to thrash you around and make you give up. But if you have a strong why, you will stand solidly in that. And just remember, the work we're doing, the institutions we're working in, they were not designed for us. In fact, they were designed deliberately to keep us out. And as great as some of those institutions are, they still need to be improved so that they can remain healthy and relevant. And that pushing of those institutions, it hurts sometimes. So just have a strong why, surround yourself with a great team, have mentors and teachers and elders that you can call up on when you're stuck. There's always a way forward. Remember, always a way forward. Celebrate your successes, and most importantly, girls, be nice to each other. Be kind. The whole mean girls thing, nothing infuriates me more than other girls and other women being mean to each other for the sake of competition or cruelty. That is one of those things that holds us back. It scars us. The bullying on the schoolyard or at the workplace or in parliament, that stuff is not helpful. So cut it out, be kind, and know that there's never been a better time for this conversation, as difficult as things are.
That is so inspiring, Minister. Yeah, I agree that we need to be kind to each other. We need to empower each other. And yeah, Minister Monsaf, it has been truly an honor to hold this interview with you. I am shaking right now. Your responses will be vitally important for many young women and girls watching today. And honestly, you inspired me. Truly, you inspired me to continue advocating for gender equality. And I am sure that you inspired everyone as well. And with
That's
that,
so
thank you very
kind.
much. Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
allowing me to hold this discussion with you, Minister. Yeah, I
Thank
would now
you.
like to
You rock
invite
it.
you.
I'm gonna sign off, but I appreciate you and the girls who are responding. Keep up the great work. You're not alone. You are not alone. And all the very best at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. We came together even though we couldn't.
Yes. Thank you so much, Minister. That's so sweet of you. I would now like to invite you to provide some closing remarks.
That was it. Just thank you and keep up the great work. And Dorothy, you are one heck of a moderator. You stayed calm and you made sure that despite the technical glitches, you were able to pivot to the next phase of your agenda. Things won't always go as scripted, but the trick is to keep your eye on the prize and keep it all moving forward. And you did that, Dorothy. Thank you very much. Chimigwech, merci, tashakur.
Thank you so much, Minister. Now, I would like to hand it over to Firdaus.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Thank you so much for actually an amazing one-to-one discussion. Hearing you both talk, I'm sure it leaves everyone even more convinced that low body confidence is a major issue that limits girls' leadership potential and their confidence in making important decisions. It leaves me, and I'm sure it leaves us all, inspired by the fact that the action is happening and that the example of Canada is one to follow. For a girl to find the courage to opt in economic and public life, get, for example, in a boardroom or speak up, they need to feel confident. We all have a role to play in supporting them. Family, educators, governments, the private sector need to bring this support and encourage those girls. And that's what I will always remember from the conversation we had today. I was actually really inspired by Minister Monsef's story and how she was talking about her mother. I personally relate so much as an individual, and I feel like without the Moroccan feminist father and mother I have that have been actually challenging the gender norms themselves when I was growing up, I would not be where I am now. I think it's really important to believe in girls and give them the stage very early on. So a massive thank you to the Honourable Minister Maria Monsef and the Canadian government for all the great work that Canada is doing to support body confidence and self-esteem education across the country. And thank you so much, Dorothy, for moderating this amazing discussion. Back to you.
Thank you so much once again, Firdaus. Now I would like to call on our panelists again. A while ago, they have shared fantastic goals, and we hope that these upcoming questions that I'll be asking them will shed light on how we can achieve these goals. So, our panelists, are you ready? Starting off, we know low body confidence and self-esteem is a critical issue for girls and women globally. So my first question is, how can we acknowledge, account for, and ensure services, policy solutions, and other interventions take into consideration the gendered aspects of this issue?
Thanks, Dorothy. I'll take that question. I think what's really important to consider is the research in this space, which has been conducted over the past several decades, has shown that low body confidence is an issue for people across genders and across the lifespan. But what we consistently see is that it disproportionately affects girls, women, non-binary and transgender individuals. And there's decades of data to support that, where we see rates of up to 85% of girls and women who feel shame about their bodies and struggle to appreciate their bodies and to be proud of them. Whereas the highest rates we tend to see for boys, although they vary in different countries and different ages, tend to be around 60%. So we have much higher rates, and this comes across at all ages, from the very earliest ages when we measure these things. The other thing that we have in place, though, is a gender beauty gap, where in society, there is so much more pressure on girls and women to spend time, energy, and money invested in their appearance and trying to change their appearance to conform to society's standards of what they tell us, what is beautiful, and how we should look like. And the penalties associated with this are really high. Just one statistic for you, there was some research that compared the income of women and men in Germany and the USA and looked at how that varied depending on their body weight. And what they saw was that for women and for men who didn't conform to societal standards and had higher body weights, they earned less. And for women, that was up to $350,000 less on average across their lifespan if they weren't very thin. And this was $180,000 less than men in a similar category. So although both men and women are penalized, women get penalized disproportionately as well. Lastly, the thing that I want to point out is that what we've seen now, because this has been socialized and ingrained for many, many years now and throughout history, that as girls, our girls are growing up today with the idea that they are objects to be looked at and to be consumed by other people, and that their appearance is central to their self-worth. And why this is really problematic is because although our appearance can be a source of fun and the way that we communicate our identity, when we start to self-objectify and take on that perspective of other people looking at us, that disrupts our flow state, it interrupts our attention, and it interrupts our efforts. Because while we're concentrating on what we're doing, we're also concentrating and thinking about how we're looking to other people when we do that. And as a result of that, that can lead to women and girls feeling uncertain, to feeling timid, to even taking up less physical space in society. So the key message here is that body confidence affects everyone, but it continues to disproportionately affect women and girls, and this is associated with greater negative consequences for them as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Felipa, for bringing up this reality that is happening. I agree that issues on body confidence, low self-esteem really disproportionately affects our girls. And in relation to these, appearance-related barriers are present significantly in places of work and decision-making spaces at large. That is why I would like to ask one of our panelists here. Her name is Yvette. From your experience working with other young women, what are some of the barriers related to low body confidence and self-esteem that are preventing young women from entering decision-making and leadership spaces?
Thank you very much for the question, Dorothy. So actually, up until this point, you can say that there have been a progress to ensure that inclusive and diverse girls participate in decision-making and leadership. But however, for example, in my country, giving the scenario of my country, Rwanda, at least 30% of positions in local government, they are strictly for the women. That means they can take 30% of the positions up. But there is still more work to be done in globally so that the barriers related to low body confidence and self-esteem, which are preventing young women from entering decision-making positions, they can be hindered and women can be now free to participate. So based on my experience, I can just classify the key aspects. So the first one probably can be the appearance based on the criteria set. I'm going to give some examples on. And also I may say about the representation, and then now the lack of proper platforms where girls and women can go and raise their voice. So starting with the criteria now, we still have restrictions and criteria for girls and young women, which focus heavily on the physical appearance, like how they look on their external appearance. For example, let us say the well-known competitions like Miss World. You see, there are some criteria set based on the body appearance, and this may lead for some young women who might have passion to go for them, not going there because they don't meet all these criteria set. So that is a very big challenge. So there are still appearance-based work requirements. For example, hairstyles, dress, the weight for given participation. And this criteria is really hindering young women to go for decision-making positions and even leadership. In addition, I want also to add a point about the representation. It is because representation is a key, and when people don't see themselves, it's really a very big challenge. So actually, representation is a key in understanding of the introduction of body image and self-esteem, which helps to understand why. Representations are lacking a lot of spaces, and this may limit young women as they cannot see themselves in these roles. Let us have an example. All institutions are not having, for example, people with physical disabilities. So anyone appearing to have a physical disability may feel not going for the position because she has never seen any person appearing like him or herself. So for me as a medical doctor in training, for example, I've not seen any medical doctor who has a physical disability. So any young women who might need to go for the position, because she has never seen anyone appearing like her, concerning the physical appearance, should not be passionate about going or running through her passion. And this is hindering them to really participate in physical and decision-making positions. So with all these body image pressures that surround us, how can we really expect women to be empowered? Oh, I may say that having a very low body confidence always push themselves to go down, like they can never aim high. They have, some even have a tendency of dependency, like because there is what they want, but they can't provide by themselves. Probably they want to reduce their weight, they want to go for plastic surgery to train themselves. And because they are not really fit for that, they tend to go for the dependency. So this can actually change the mindset and diminishes the confidence to go for decision-making positions. So all these are really a very big challenge, and there are still barriers that we must overcome because they are really stopping girls and young women to go for decision-making positions and even leadership. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yvette, for speaking up from your experiences. And I agree that these are really strong points. You mentioned a while ago that there are political aspects, the representations as well within the institution and empowerment. And I am sure that a lot of us can relate to these. Thus, we really need to work on making sure that we break these barriers that keep women away from their place in the leadership and decision-making spaces. And one of the limits that you mentioned a while ago has something to do with representation and ideals, which is actually connected to my next question. Cosmetic brands have a drastic influence over girls, and it made me wonder, Evelyn, working for a big entity such as Unilever, which covers many cosmetic brands, how do you ensure that you are not contributing to those who promote an image myth or unrealistic standard for girls and young women?
Thank you, Dorothy. That's a very powerful question. And it is something that we at Unilever take very seriously, and we grapple with that question every day. One of our firm beliefs is that empowering women and girls is the single most effective catalyst that we could use to unlock progress in human development and economic growth for the world. So for us, this isn't an issue that's simply about our workforce. It's a place where we want to influence societal thought about how women are portrayed and perceived. It was so inspiring to hear the story from the minister and the words that she shared. And we completely agree that we need continued leadership from businesses, from governments, from civil institutions, from organizations like this, so that we can continue to battle the imagery that infiltrates women in every aspect of their lives. I think at the end of the day, Dove is first and foremost a beauty brand, and we are striving to be different. We are very proud of the leadership that we've taken in redefining how beauty is portrayed and celebrated. One of the key things that we do in our Dove Real Beauty Pledge is that we always feature real women, never models. We portray women as they are in real life, and we help girls build body confidence. So you heard the Dove Self-Esteem Project. We started this work in 2004, and our goal is to touch over 250 million young people by 2030. The work that we've done is to partner with experts, image experts, and universities around the world so that we could develop a base of evidence-based tools that could be shared with schools, with young leaders, with organizations like WAGS. And the purpose of this is to give our young girls and boys the tools to understand what it takes to have body confidence and self-esteem and to combat these external messages. One of the newest things that we've done with this huge body of knowledge that we have is launch our Positive Beauty Initiative. So for skincare, for soap, for shampoo, for all of the Unilever beauty and personal care brands, so this goes beyond Dove, we're removing the word normal from advertising and packaging all over the world. And this is very critical for us because we build our ideas based on the experiences that we have. And so if we create this standard that this is normal, then anybody who doesn't fit that definition begins to feel excluded and internalizes those ideas. So in a recent survey that we did around 10,000 people across 9 countries, 7 out of 10 said that the word normal, when it's on beauty packaging, has a negative effect on people. And in particular, it raises anxiety in young girls, ages 10 through 18. So our goal is to be committed to working on putting a progressive narrative out there, to actually stand for something different. It's not just about selling a soap. Our beauty and personal care brands are also committed to ending all digital altering, from changing body shape to lightening skin color. So we want to be able to portray the beauty of diversity that we have in the world, not only in front of the camera, so what you see in our ads, but also behind the camera. So we want to work with different types of diverse identity groups in creating this narrative and really driving a personal sense of responsibility as a business to ensure that we're not contributing to this negative imagery that exists. Personally, I'll share with you that as a Latina woman born and raised in the US of immigrant parents, I was often the only. So the only dark skinned, the only curly haired, the only with a few extra pounds. And while throughout my life, it was something that I battled with in wanting to be accepted and to be normal, what our research is showing is that people like us, when we are the only, when we break into those spaces of leadership and sharing our voice, that actually builds a different set of skill sets and competencies that yield better leadership, right? So Consider your diversity your superpower. It's what allows you to be more resilient, better problem solvers, more innovative. And every barrier that we are able to overcome individually or collectively as women is one more building block that establishes our confidence and our ability to make incredible change in this world. So conferences like this and this kind of conversation is actually the reason that I'm in my role. I will always accept a chance to talk to young women like you before I talk to a senior leader.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. And I really like, personally, I really like this idea of changing the narrative of having normal or being normal with diversity, because we are really diverse. And, representation, just like what we mentioned by the minister in the interview with the minister a while ago, representation is really important. Because, like, for example, as an Asian girl myself, whenever I see Asian, or whenever I see Filipinas just like me, like who looks like me, I feel empowered. I feel like I belong to this particular group. I belong to the society. And like personally, I really like that idea that Unilever is working on that, and you are continuing and making progressive narrative and context. Thank you so much for that, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Yeah. Today, we've discussed how issues such as low body image and self-esteem can be described as an invisible barrier to girls' development and full and effective participation in life and reaching their full potential. So my question is, what steps can decision makers take today to remove some of these barriers in young women and girls' public and private life? So
that's to me.
Yeah, if you want, you can answer the question.
Yeah, sure. I think that one of the things that leaders can do is to really first start questioning their own assumptions and stereotypes that operate in their mindset, sometimes unconsciously. What we know is that as humans, we can't possibly take in all the information that the world has to offer. And what we tend to do is focus on a specific assessment that we've made or decision that we've made. But the trap is that we then keep collecting more data to reinforce whatever that belief is. And so if we don't question our beliefs, we actually end up only selecting data that reinforces the things that we currently believe. So this is why your point on representation is so critical. When young girls are able to see themselves in different settings, they begin to believe that it's possible. I grew up with my mother. She is a seamstress. She worked in a sweatshop. She made wedding dresses. And so in the after school or during the summers, I would go with her to work and I would learn about how to sew and how to iron. I had bigger aspirations than that, and she pushed me further. Today, my daughter, who's 13, comes to work with me. And she last year was sitting at my desk, which happens to be next to the CEO of Northern Latin American business for Unilever. And she turned to him and said, that ice cream that you have with the unicorn, I really like it. You need to bring it back into the market. And I turned to her and I thought, at first I thought the audacity, right? Here she is talking to my CEO. And then I realized that's exactly what we want. There, in her mind, there isn't a barrier for her to give her opinion. And in the settings in which she is, she's considering that typical or normal. And so I think companies and leaders who can focus on how we unstereotype the world in which we live in. One of the things that Unilever is driving is an alliance with co-convened with UN Women. And what we're trying to do is to bring industry together so that we can begin to combat, one, realistic imaging, looking at the non-biased portrayal of men and women. So what roles do we see women in? What personalities are women taking on? And what's the appearance that they have? So that's an example of how we can band together. But I also think we have to affect legislation. And so in the US, for example, we've sponsored the Crown Act, which is a law that is now enacted in 7 states. Our goal is to go for 50 states, that protects against hair discrimination. And so this idea of appearance and what does professional look like allowing young women to express themselves through their appearance and not have that be a barrier for their professional success. So I think leaders and companies like Unilever need to go beyond the conversation to actually institutionalize the solution, making it a law, putting it into policy, putting it into our operating policy. That is a systemic solution. So I think it's both the conversation and ensuring that we can get compliance around behavior, right? So it's not just getting to commitment. People have to first comply so that they can understand why it's important. And we're all on this learning journey together.
Wow, thank you, Evelyn. I absolutely agree on what you said, that aside from bringing this conversation and having this conversation, we also have to have the legislation to make it more, more solid. And the story about your daughter is really interesting. Just want to say that. And
She was
yeah,
just here. She actually just left. She got to hear the minister, which was wonderful.
wow, that's great. Okay. Any more from our panelists who want to answer the question? What steps do you think can decision makers take today to remove some of these barriers in young women and girls' public and private life?
Yeah, I would like to also jump on what Evelyn said. I actually loved what you said, Evelyn, about institutionalizing a solution, because as Minister Monsef earlier spoke about, a lot of these institutions in which decision makers are in are actually built from the ground up, not for women, and they're not necessarily always these inclusive spaces that we might think they are. But crucially, decision makers should be including girls and young women in their conversation. So I love the phrase that no decisions about us without us. And so that when decision makers are looking to ask themselves the questions, how can we help girls and young women, that they invite girls and young women into the spaces that they are in, and that they crucially invite them into the conversation. And so when governments and organizations are consulting young women, they really need to consider that their experiences are unique and they're authentic. And especially when we're looking at body confidence, there isn't necessarily a global banner on this, that we can't just club it all together in one statistic, but actually we owe it to young women to listen to their experiences, because they're so diverse, and only in listening will we really truly understand. And so I also think decision makers should make a real effort to target specific institutions, for example, schools. One of my suggestions is that they really invest in gender equality training for teachers, especially, that they can then pass on the information and the agency that they have onto their students. Because often in this digital world where we are receiving messages all the time, one of the most powerful things I believe you can do is give young women the agency to be able to spot when they're being manipulated, or when they're being pushed into a stereotype, and that they then can know that actually that doesn't apply to them, or that is everyday sexism, or that is deliberately trying to lower my self-esteem, and I'm going to be wary of that. And also, finally, decision makers should make a real effort to increase investment in youth mental health services, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. I think we're going to see this big kind of rise of trauma that has come from it. And so there should be funding given to mental health services, and for those who really need it. And that needs to be emergency funding, because I think we are going to see a big spike in those women and girls who are really suffering. So yeah, overall, I think that decision makers really owe it to young women to invest in them, because as we've spoken a bit about, investing in young women is only beneficial for decision makers, both economically and socially. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophie. That was very clear. And I agree with what you mentioned a while ago, that decisions should not be made about us, girls and women, without having us in the conversation. Because if they put us on the table and really listen and make us feel heard, then it really encompasses all the issues that are affecting us, right? Yeah, so that was very clear. Thank you so much, Sophie. Another panelist who want to answer the question. What steps can decision makers take today to remove some of these barriers in young women and girls' public and private life?
Hi, Dorothy. It's Philippa here. I've got a few suggestions to decision makers. I think with any really serious public health and social justice issue, which body confidence definitely is, we need a multi-level approach. So we need, of course, voice and representation of girls and women, and that needs to be at all levels of society. We need women and girls to be involved in these decisions and advocating and saying what they need. And we also need to reflect the amazing diversity that we see in everyday life within our own communities and around the world. And Dorothy, you've already eloquently spoken about this. Minister Monsef did as well, and Evelyn, that when you can't see yourself represented in media or in positions of power, that can limit our ideas about what we can achieve in life. So it's really important that we see that greater representation, and that we see that in positions of power, but also in advertising and media, and that brands and businesses take responsibility for that. Building on already what Sophie has alluded to in terms of support, we also need to be engaging with community organizations, which WAGS is really leading the way in this space, and also schools and other areas, to deliver evidence-based resources to help girls to develop the skills that they need to be able to critically analyze the media and the messages that they're getting from society around them, as well as to learn how to cope with appearance-based teasing and bullying. We know appearance-based teasing and bullying is one of the #1 reasons that young people get teased. So helping girls to have the skills to manage that is really important. And then helping to empower girls to take action in their communities. And it's really important that we make sure that the tools and programs that we're using in schools are evidence-based. And by that, I mean that they're based on the best available science and research. They're informed by the expertise and voices of girls and women, and that they're proven to work. And that's why WAGS programs such as Free Being Me on Action on Body Confidence, which are evidence-based programs, are really important. Of course, we need social policy, and I know that we'll have opportunities to talk about this throughout the rest of the panel, but social policy around media representation is really important, both so that we show the natural diversities of the appearance of people, so whether that's their skin color, their age, how they want to express their gender and their sexuality. It's really important that we see that. But we also need to look at social policy around technology and social media platforms, and also, which we're going to touch on in a bit, looking at policies around discrimination as well and how they encapsulate appearance. And then finally, I think one of the really important things that decision makers, but all of us, need to do is, it's not key to, we don't all have to have perfect body confidence ourselves before we can have a positive impact on others around us. And in fact, what can be really important sometimes is to fake it till you make it, or to think about how we role model and talk about our own bodies in front of girls and in front of other women. Because although we might not feel 100% confident in ourselves all the time, we don't have to love every aspect of our body. But if we can role model the aspects of ourselves that we might appreciate and take and are grateful for, that our bodies allow us to do, and also to challenge our friends and family when we hear them making negative comments about their own bodies or other people's bodies. And that's a small step that we can all take every day to kind of disrupt the pressures on girls as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Felipe. That was so comprehensive, and I love that you kept on emphasizing the evidence-based strategy, like having this youth consultation and really listening to girls. It's like what we kept on mentioning a while ago. Yeah, great. So moving forward, Low body confidence limits girls' leadership potential and confidence in decision making. And as we learned in our interactive quiz a while ago, facilitated by Ijen, 7 in 10 or 72% of girls with low body esteem say that they will not be assertive in their opinion or stick to their decisions if they don't feel good about the way they look. So, how can we ensure that this is taken into consideration in efforts related to SDG Goal 5.5?
Hi, Dorothy. So I can answer your question. So I believe definitely, as others have said, low self-esteem and body confidence really have great impact so much in our lives, but a lot more on our ability to feel capable of doing things. And other factors as to why the statistics that we see earlier, the rate that's been presented to us prevails, is because there is a significant link between low self esteem and our relationship with nutrition, which negatively impacts our abilities to lead in decision making spaces. Another thing is eating disorders. These are one of the long standing issues that the society recognizes, but we don't really address it. We don't really address eating disorders and changing food habits because of external pressure, because of the society believes that we have to diet, we have to watch what we eat. So um this external pressure affects performance and self-esteem of young girls. We see examples in some nations where the support and aid for healthcare and nutrition are very scarce, and it is the girls who lose out. So, on the other hand, when girls are not confident in their own skin, it can lead to such drastic effects to their self-esteem that they even begin to stop eating food. They don't eat much, they don't get enough nutrients that they need, that their body need to function well. So being undernourished, then it becomes a barrier for them when it comes to performing in universities, in their extracurriculars, in their organizations, adding to the factors as to why women actually lose opportunities to participate in leadership roles and policy making. I believe that it is another point is that we have to address that in today's society, just like what the other panelists mentioned before, is that girls are more susceptible to body shaming. At a very young age, we girls, young women, we have been taught, we have been told how to act, how to dress, and even during our formative years, it has been instilled to us that we always need to be appropriate for the society. And especially with the digital age, with the emergence of TikToks and Instagram, image myths of how girls should be, how girls should look like, it affects greatly the confidence and self-esteem of women drastically. So I believe that to address these factors, which exacerbates low body confidence in girls, policymakers and decision makers should spearhead investing more in girls and young women's education, nutrition, healthcare, and they have to spearhead in recognizing the importance of giving girls and young women opportunities, that there is a need for an increase in funding, and there is a need to develop more structured programs designed for these very causes. Comprehensive reforms may also be done to restructure the current laws and regulations to fight discrimination against women, because like what other panelists said, and what our prime minister said a while ago, the uh, the laws, the regulations that we have today is, unfortunately, the sad reality is that it's even skewed against women. So we have to, we need policymakers to address these issues for achieving gender equality.
Yes, thank you so much, Kathleen. I like that you tap into the intersectionality of these issues, disproportionately affecting girls and women, such as the link among food security, low self-esteem, and body confidence, and even the societal standards and appropriateness for girls, which results in body shaming and conformity to the image myth. And I just want to say that I agree 100% that we need extensive reviews and change, if necessary, of the current policies and regulations ensuring that they do not discriminate against women in any form. And of course, including girls and women in this decision-making and leadership spaces. And talking about creating change, Evelyn, as a woman in leadership, can you share with us what challenges you face as a young woman leader and what advice would you give to young girls trying to create change today?
I think that's a great question. I'm 51 years old, so you're asking me to go back in time and remember the challenges that I faced as a young girl. I will tell you that there's some very vivid moments in my life. In Unilever, we call them crucible moments. These are those moments that sort of shape you as a person. We've done work throughout the company where we want 100% of our employees to define what their purpose in life is. And one of the ways that you get to find your purpose is to look back through your life at those highs and lows that shaped who you were. And I think one of those challenges that I faced was this way in which the world wants to put you in a box and make it easy for them to quantify you, to track you, to define you. As a dark-skinned Latina born in the US, at a very young age, one of the questions that I had to consistently answer was, where are you from? And I would respond that I'm from Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a borough in New York State. And that's not the answer they were looking for. And so that comes from an unconscious bias that an American looks a certain way, right? Blonde hair, blue-eyed, apple pie eating American. And my saying that I was born and raised in this country at a very young age, making me feel as though I didn't really belong here. I then experienced going to Honduras, which is where my family is from. And I would, in the US, I would say I'm Honduran American, right? As a way of trying to combat that answer. But then my cousins would say to me, you're a Yankee, you're not Honduran, right? And so there was this way of feeling that I was always on the outside looking in. And I think I started doing advocacy work when I was 15. A teacher in my school recommended that I run for student council. So I started as president of my class. And then another teacher gave me an application to join a youth advisory group that was part of New York City. So they young people, ages, I don't know, 12 through 17, working in the mayor's office. And so I joined, I put in an application and I said, why not? And I got an opportunity to work with decision makers, business leaders, educators, and share my views, right? Who was I at 15? But to share my point of view on what young people needed from these different providers, and really learn that if you are clear about the goals that you want to achieve, that's the first step in getting others to even react to your point of view. They may not agree, but putting your voice out there makes it necessary for them to have to react to it. So when I define my purpose, after going through these experiences, my purpose is that I say what people need to hear in the service of myself and others. And that to me speaks to always letting my light shine, not diminishing who I am, and recognizing that I change the room the moment I walk into it. My personality, my skin tone, my gender, all of the elements of who I am means that the dynamics of the room that I'm in are going to be different because I'm in it. And so owning that and not trying to blend in and not being afraid to have a descending point of view or challenging the existing conversation. I think the challenge that I went through was finding my voice. And I started by finding it in support of others. And I've worked throughout my life to find it in support of me. And now I have a 13-year-old girl who is dyslexic, who came out to us last year and who developed social anxiety in the school environment that's virtual. And so I also have to be a voice for her. So I think the biggest challenge for me is being able to go through my life, being my full present self, and knowing that not everyone's gonna like me, but at least they're gonna have to react to the issues that I think are important.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. That is so inspiring. Like, I cannot stress how inspiring it is. Like, honestly, it really is. And now I would like to, since we are running out of time, I would like to um turn into the topic of COVID-19. So in the midst of COVID-19, we are aware that these issues are being exacerbated by the pandemic, and there are great concerns about the impact the pandemic will have on girls and young women's confidence and empowerment. Our consultations with young women show that there has been an increase in loneliness, mental health, and body image anxiety. What mechanisms do you believe we should be focusing on as priority to ensure girls and young women do not fall behind and are instead inspired to be leaders and change makers? Maybe we're going to start with Kathleen first. Kathleen?
Sure, Dorothy. So, to answer that question, so firstly, I believe that organizations and different sectors should check the statistics that's just been presented to us today and start making reforms on the laws and the programs that are being implemented to ensure that they will be creating an environment that's suitable for both men and women. We should recognize the importance of women's participation in public life and decision making by addressing women's poverty, unpaid care burden, and equal access to sexual and reproductive health and rights. So those are just some of the very important things that needs focusing and funding. So secondly, I believe that the most important mechanism that we must instill in the minds of the young girls and women is the mechanism for breaking the stereotypes in our society, the stereotypes and image myths that's been ingrained in our society for so many, if I may say, centuries now. And if I may just share, personally, I growing up, I have also been a victim of the society's cruel standards. Imagine at the young age of 8, I have already started going to the salon because I didn't like my curly hair. So at the age of 8, at second grade, I already had my hair straightened out, and it went on for years. And if you'll believe me, even after gaining confidence, as I grow older, I only stopped straightening my hair last year, and it only goes to show that um the physical appearance is something that even the most confident girls, even the most independent girls or girls with strong can I say appetite for criticisms, it is still something that they have to suffer each day. So even after being involved with Girl Scouting, even after gaining my confidence, even have after having a great support system, it took me so many years to finally accept my curly hair, and so now I haven't straightened it for about a year now, and I'm very glad for that decision. And another a memory that I remember is I remember getting sad in I think fifth grade or sixth grade that I didn't I wasn't picked to join the beauty pageant in our local school, and I blame it all to my petite and small structure and the morena complexion or the brown skin that I have. But I was lucky enough to have a wonderful environment that's very kind and very supportive, that I learned to accept my body, my color, and my hair. But what about other girls? What about other women who don't have those kind of environment, who grew in an environment which constantly demeans them because of their physical appearance, which um and that is really an unfortunate reality that's happening. So I'm hoping that we can and I also want to acknowledge one comment from the Zoom chat. So they also mentioned that even girls with blonde hair, they also have to combat stereotypes each day. So aside from those girls who have who have morena skin or brown skin, other we can say that each girl have to suffer criticisms from other people, which only goes to show that there will be no perfect, or there will be no ideal girl for other people, for the society. So we just have to really accept and embrace our flaws. We're flawsome. And to end my answer, I just hope that we can teach women that they do not have to conform to any criteria on how their skin color should be, on what their what waistline measurements are deemed perfect, that they don't have to conform to the standards on how a woman should look like, because your height does not define the lengths that you can achieve. Because as long as the color of your eyes doesn't stain and doesn't hinder you from seeing the changes that needs to be done in this world, and as long as you have the passion and dedication to be that leader that this world need, to be a change maker, girl, you don't need straight hair. So I'm hoping that all girls who are listening to this call right now, that they will also learn to express themselves more and be more confident in their own skin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. That was so powerful. You know, whenever we share our personal stories, it really is powerful. And I just like to reiterate what you said, that awareness and empowerment really is important. And I think as Girl Scouts and Girl Guides, we have we need and we have to spread the message to all our girls, to all the girls and young women across the globe, that we do not need to change anything in our appearance. And of course, it would be possible if we're going to work with organizations and governments here, right? So I was your your response is really great. It's very well said. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Since we're really running out of time, I am going down to our last question, and that is, youth-led grassroots activism is extremely important for the impact the pandemic has had on the younger generation, as it is essential that we amplify their voices. So I would like to ask our young mentor here, how have you found the confidence and ability to continue activism even during the pandemic?
Thank you very much, Dorothy, for the question. So actually, Rwanda, my mother country, has reported its first case of COVID-19 on the 13th March 2020, last year. So this was actually the unusual tragedy, but which had to take our attention as firstly as responsible citizens, but also as a healthcare personnel, to move out and implement the Clean Hands project, which mainly focuses on providing sanitation tools, because hand washing is among the pillars of preventing this COVID-19 pandemic. So now the questions comes, how many have you been able to withstand and make sure that they give their contribution even within the COVID-19 pandemic? So actually the use of social media in a very extended long period of time has induced girls and young women to rethink of themselves, spend time with their families, and witness body confidence stereotypes, and they can't really keep their activism. Because activism comes when you have body confidence. Indeed, the thing which actually helped me to continue my activism is because of my belonging in the Gagarin movement, as I said, Gidi Rwanda, which has given me a sense of continuing my impact in the community. This is because we had many programs continuing online, including the Free Being Me program, which has actually kept a positive vibe and courage to deliver as responsible citizens. So I may say that it's never about the situation, but it is about the empowerment, like having the opportunity to really be in a very good association of the Gagarin movement, which keeps you active and making sure that you are able to withstand even in very harsh conditions, but to keep the activism. Thank you very much. That was thanks to the Girl Guiding movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette, for answering that so fast. I am happy that the Girl Guiding and Girl Scouting movement played a part in keeping you confident, capable, and competent in continuing your activism. And that, everybody, wraps up our panel discussion. Very quickly, I would like to ask our dear panelists to share what is the main thing that they want the audience to take away from this panel discussion, starting off with Sophie. Hi, Sophie. Can you share one thing that you would like the audience to take away from this discussion?
Thanks, Dorothy. So as women, we have been told from the age in which we choose our first Barbie doll over our action man to see ourselves through the male gaze. that is to be desirable and palatable for men. And I'm so proud of platforms like this, in which we can raise awareness around body image and tell young women that that narrative is flawed. And so if young people are going to take away one thing from this, it is that know that the patriarchy is set up against us, and that when we learn to see ourselves in a different way that isn't through the male gaze or the kind of stereotypical perfect body, then we win and we get our power back a little bit more every time that we realize that we see ourselves, that we choose to see ourselves in a different way.
Thank you, Sophie. That is so powerful. Now, let's move on with Kathleen.
Hi again. So I think for my last words for this panel is that there will always be people who won't believe in you, won't believe in us, won't believe in what you can do in your capabilities. But if you let these voices hinder you from achieving all the possibilities that you can do, all the opportunities, if you let all these words hinder you from achieving everything that you can, it's just really sad because I think the very first words that we should listen to is the voice. I I think we should listen to ourselves because even though the quote, the advice that be yourself, that trust yourself is really hard to grasp, that it's very easy to say, but it's really hard to apply. Like how do I trust myself in this? How do I believe in myself when clearly I can see all my flaws? It's just you just have to try. And that is the first step.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I agree that we should first listen to our inner voice and then, and then go on. Next, let's have Evelyn for her last words.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you can see my background, which says unmute.
Yeah, we can.
The word that was most used in 2020 was unmute yourself, right? Because we transitioned to this virtual world. So COVID brought a lot of rapid changes, and we learned that we are very adaptable and that we're able to make the change quickly. But it also brought other issues for us. So we saw a huge increase in domestic violence and women's safety issues and concerns, right? Because now people are working from home and locked into the situations. So the message that I want to leave you with is each of you has the opportunity to unmute yourself, to share the issues that are happening in your life experience, the positive things and the difficult challenges. By creating this kind of dialogue and having your voice be heard, you're going to be impacting the lives of so many others. Kathleen's words on hair and her own beauty coming across is so incredibly inspirational. So she's unmuted around that issue. So what's the issue that you can be unmuted about? And how do you continue to use your voice to create the kind of society that's going to be more positive for you, but also for the rest of us?
Unmute and speak up. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Next, let's have Yvette.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorothy, for my last comment. So actually, we've seen many discussions ongoing, but the value that you must really value is that body confidence should never be a restriction for young women to involve in decision-making positions and even leadership. We've seen different barriers hindering, and this is a call to action. The first thing, just to get out of themselves and get empowered to make sure that they can move to whatever passion they want to go through without considering any aspect of the body confidence. By then, let us now request the decision makers to also remove these barriers, because at the end of the day, the confidence is there, but there are still some restrictions, as I've been saying before. So that's why we request to value inclusion and representations, to make sure that whichever decisions are made for whichever program is coming and need to benefit everyone worldwide, they have to have young women representing, so that the decision will be for themselves, but also by themselves having a voice in it. In this way, you're going to be able to open up all the ways for every girl, for every young woman going, like having the passion to go for something, going for it without having any restriction and any barrier. Thank you very much. That was my last comment.
Thank you so much, Yvette. Do not let invisible barriers hinder us from accessing relevant spaces. Now let's have Felipa.
Thanks. My take-home messages are that this is not a vanity issue that we're talking about. As based on all the information and the shared experiences of everyone, it's crystal clear, and based on the science as well, that body confidence is a public health issue, it's a gender equality issue, and it's a social justice issue. And as a result, every girl needs to feel confident enough to be able to take up space in this world. And so I would like to encourage the girls watching to take up space, to call out companies on social media that are doing things that, you know, exclude other people or exclude them, to, if it's possible, write to your politician and demand that appearance be included as a protected characteristic, so it's not actually legal to discriminate against someone based on appearance, which it currently is legal in most countries and places around the world. And really importantly, a message to us as women and girls is to try and remember that your body is not an object. It's not there for other people to consume and to have power over. Your body is your home, and it's an active instrument for you to be able to influence the world around you. And so taking a moment to express gratitude to your body for what it allows you to do, rather than seeing it as a hindrance and something that you need to overcome.
That's so powerful. Thank you, Felipa. We should own our body. And again, thank you so much to all our speakers for your valuable time and for giving your insights and answers. This has been a truly insightful panel and a joy for me to moderate. I would now like to invite back Sarah Anna to provide the closing comments for the event. Sarah?
Thank you, Dorothy. So, one moment. All good things come to an end, so does this event as well. And I want to thank every one of you for staying with us and participating today. And I would like to encourage you to follow up on what our wonderful panelists and speakers said today, as we need all of us to be able to achieve all of our goals. And for this, please find our post-event flyer through the QR code and the link that you're provided here on the space. I don't know where the QR code is right now, but with the link it also works. So just share them also in the chat. And there you will get all the details you need on how to get involved and support the movement to ensure that all young women and girls develop the confidence, self-esteem, and appreciation of their bodies to ensure that they can participate effectively and to their full potential. And I want to end our event with a quote by our first female leader of WTO, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. It says, investing in women is smart economics, and investing in girls, catching them upstream, is even smarter economics. What I want us all to take away from today's session and this quote is that we need to invest in women, but most importantly in girls, including addressing body image in our work, as this is what we need to do to change the world to a better one for all. So thank you, and keep up the good work of breaking all the barriers.